been homeschooling for 19 years. And Alison, how long have you been homeschooling?
So it's, I always say I started homeschooling the day my kids were born, because there's no difference between parenting and teaching, right?
Yes, exactly.
It is literally, it's all the same thing. So going on, it'll be 16 years in December. So
awesome. So this next question, longevity, can I do it? And can I make this sustainable? I mean, that wasn't even a question I had, but I really feel like this is something that we need to answer. So what do you have to say to our parents about that?
I think one of the biggest enemies of long-term homeschooling is the overwhelm. Yeah. It's this feeling of, I have to do so much, which I think, we kind of talked about that already, feeling like there's this weight. I have so much I have to teach them. Yeah. Feeling like there's so much that we need to do, that there are all these things that we're supposed to do as homeschoolers. And I think we burn ourselves out because we're expecting so much of ourselves. Yeah. And I think that a big reason for that is because even though we know we're not supposed to compare what we do to public school, it's what we tend to do, whether we do it, consciously or not. And whenever we compare, we go, well, gosh, they're in school for 6 hours a day or more, and they're covering all of this stuff, and they're doing so much, and all the activities, and all of the stuff, and all of the little crafty things, and all of the papers, and the essays, and the workbooks, and the tests. And so certainly, if I'm going to show that I have done my kids good with homeschooling, I need to do at least that or more to justify that I made this decision. And so I think that's what ends up burning so many of us out, is that we feel like we have so much to do. And over the last year, I have personally I've been kind of on this journey of trying to figure out what is the core of what education truly ought to be. Because I think, and actually now I'm in a place where I know we have overcomplicated education. Yeah. And a big reason why public school looks the way it does is because of the reasons for why it was started, and it was not started for education. Yes, and that's going to take us down a whole different road that I will not go down, because that's really.
Oh, I give a whole hour talk on that. Yes, I know.
But I always recommend, there's a fantastic book called Passion Driven Education. And the whole first section of that book looks at the foundation of public schooling and why it is the way it is. And when you understand why the founding fathers of education structured it the way that they did, you understand why they made it take so much time, and why they insist on doing so much stuff, and why over time they've kept stuffing it with more and more and more and more stuff. And it has nothing to do with actual education. And what I have come to believe is that all we truly need to do now, I'm talking like the very, very core, not that you should never do anything but these things, but the core of what we need to be focusing on is kind of what I already mentioned. It's the stuff that sets your children up to be able to learn whatever they need to learn. It's knowing how to read, it's knowing how to communicate, it's knowing basic math, and it's knowing critical thinking. If they have a grasp of those four things, then it doesn't matter what else you do in your homeschool. They are prepared to learn anything else that they need. Now, obviously, as parents, it is also our job to make sure that our children can function in the real world. And part of that is socialization. It's understanding cultures. It's understanding different people. It's knowing how it's knowing how to work with other people, how to collaborate, how to live in community. Basic manners, things like that. But we tend to hyper focus on all of the academics. And even as homeschoolers, we tend to we bulk everything up with that. And then we fill it in with like all the other stuff. Oh yeah, we should probably find a playground. We're going to put that in here. And we should probably do some like music stuff. So we'll kind of put that in here. Instead of saying, okay, what is going to make my child the most well-rounded individual they can be? How can I set them up to be the best version of themselves that they can be? Yeah. And how can I make sure they are aware of what all is out there in the world? And being aware of what's out there does not require deep study. It just requires exposure. Yeah. And so by really focusing on those four critical skills of reading, communication, math, basic math, and like everyday math, and then the critical thinking, being able to think critically and reason. When we focus on those, and then I mean, that does not take that much time. If that's the basis of what you're focusing on, when you think of your whole day as a family, if you're focusing on that, even if you're working with a child who maybe has dyslexia or processing disorders or something where it's going to take longer every day than it would take for a normal child, it's still not going to take 6 hours. It's not going to take 4 hours, you know? And so you focus on those things, and then you expose with everything else. You expose with videos and with library books and with documentaries and with museums and with people, meeting people and interviewing people. You find someone in your community who has some incredible experience, or a veteran who served in a war, or someone who's moved here from another country. And you take the person out for lunch and you say, tell us. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about this experience. Tell us about this thing. And so you expose them to stuff so that they have an idea of what's out there in the world. And then they can decide for themselves, what do they want to deep dive on? And when you see that your child gets super excited about whatever, then you say, ooh, all right, let's spend some time on this. Because the opposite of that is saying, we're going to spend equal amounts of time on all of these different things, whether you're interested in them or not. And some of it's going to sink in, and your child's going to be like, man, I wish we could do more of this. And a lot of it is going to whoosh totally or in one ear and out the other, because they don't care. And then that's when you get that in 20 years, Mom, you never taught me about XYZ. And you're like, I did. You just didn't care. So rather than fighting against our children's natural interests and inclinations, if we spend time exposing them, focusing on these skills and making sure we get those skills really well, and then exposing them to all these other things, first of all, way more interesting, way more enjoyable, and so much pressure off of our shoulders of having to cram it all in. And when you take that more relaxed, simplified approach to education, it is much more sustainable. You're not going to burn yourself out. And realizing too that it is a marathon, and that 18 is not your it's not your deadline. It's not your child's expiration date, you know? So, so you get what you can in between now and then. And if you focus on those skills, then at least you know, hey, when they go, they've got what they need.